must go. Moral precepts for the student of painting. Many are they who have a taste and love for drawing, but no talent, and this will be discernible in boys who are not diligent and never finish their drawings with shading. The youth should first learn perspective, then the proportions of objects. Then he may copy from some good master to accustom himself to fine forms, then from nature to confirm by practice the rules he has learnt, then see for a time the works of various masters, then get the habit of putting his art into practice and work. We know for certain that sight is one of the most rapid actions we can perform. In an instant we see an infinite number of forms. Still, we only take in thoroughly one object at a time. Supposing that you, reader, were to glance rapidly at the whole of this written page, you would instantly perceive that it was covered with various letters. But you could not, in the time, recognize what the letters were, nor what they were meant to tell. Hence, you would need to see them word by word, line by line, to be able to understand the letters. Again, if you wish to go to the top of a building, you must go up step by step. Otherwise, it will be impossible that you should reach the top. Thus I say to you, whom nature prompts to pursue this art, if you wish to have a sound knowledge of the forms of objects, begin with the details of them, and do not go on to the second step till you have the first well fixed in memory and in practice. And if you do otherwise, you will throw away your time, or certainly greatly prolong your studies. And remember to acquire diligence rather than rapidity. If you who draw desire to study well and to good purpose, always go slowly to work in your drawing, and discriminate in the lights, which have the highest degree of brightness, and to what extent, and likewise in the shadows, which are those that are darker than the others, and in what way they intermingle, then their masses and the relative proportions of one to the other, and note in their outlines which way they tend, and which part of the lines is curved to one side or the other, and where they are more or less conspicuous, and consequently broad or fine, and finally that your light and shade blend without strokes and borders, but looking like smoke. And when you have thus schooled your hand and your judgment by such diligence, you will acquire rapidity before you are aware. Of the life of the painter in the country. A painter needs such mathematics as belong to painting, and the absence of all companions who are alienated from his studies. His brain must be easily impressed by the variety of objects which successively come before him, and also free from other cares. And if, when considering and defining one subject, a second subject intervenes, as happens when an object occupies the mind, then he must decide which of these cases is the more difficult to work out, and follow that up until it becomes quite clear, and then work out the explanation of the other. And above all, he must keep his mind as clear as the surface of a mirror, which assumes colors as various as those of the different objects. And his companions should be like him as to their studies, and if such cannot be found, he should keep his speculations to himself alone, so that at last he will find no more useful company than his own. Of the life of the painter in his studio. To the end that well-being of the body may not injure that of the mind, the painter or draftsman must remain solitary, and particularly when intent on those studies and reflections which will constantly rise up before his eye, giving materials to be well stored in the memory. While you are alone, you are entirely your own master, and if you have one companion, you are but half your own, and the less so in proportion to the indiscretion of his behavior. And if you have many companions, you will fall deeper into the same trouble. If you should say, I will go my own way and withdraw apart, the better to study the forms of natural objects, I tell you, you will not be able to help often listening to their chatter. And so, since one cannot serve two masters, you will badly fill the part of a companion, and carry out your studies of art even worse, And if you say, I will withdraw so far that the words cannot reach me and they cannot disturb me, I can tell you that you will be thought mad. But you see, you will at any rate be alone. And if you must have companionship, find it in your studio. This may assist you to have the advantages which arise from various speculations. All other company may be highly mischievous. Of whether it is better to draw with companions or not. I say and insist that drawing in company is much better than alone, for many reasons. The first is that you would be ashamed to be seen behindhand among the students, and such shame will lead you to careful study. Secondly, a wholesome emulation will stimulate you to be among those who are more praised than yourself, and this praise of others will spur you on. Another is that you can learn from the drawings of others who do better than yourself, and if you are better than they, you can profit by your contempt for their defects, while the praise of others will incite you to farther merits. The painter is not praiseworthy who does but one thing well, as the nude figure, heads, draperies, animals, landscapes, or other such details, irrespective of other work. For there can be no mind so inept that after devoting itself to one single thing and doing it constantly, it should fail to do it well. Some may distinctly assert that those persons are under a delusion who call that painter a good master who can do nothing well but a head or a figure. Certainly this is no great achievement. After studying one single thing for a lifetime, who would not have attained some perfection in it? But since we know that painting embraces and includes in itself every object produced by nature, or resulting from the fortuitous actions of men, in short, all that the eye can see, he seems to me but a poor master who can only do a figure well. For do you not perceive how many and various actions are performed by men only? How many different animals there are, as well as trees, plants, flowers, with many mountainous regions and plains, springs and rivers, cities with public and private buildings, machines, too, fit for the purposes of men, divers costumes, decorations, and arts, and all these things ought to be regarded as of equal importance and value by the man who can be termed a good painter. In important works, a man should not trust entirely to his memory without condescending to draw from nature. Any master who should venture to boast that he could remember all the forms and effects of nature would certainly appear to me to be graced with extreme ignorance, inasmuch as these effects are infinite, and our memory is not extensive enough to retain them. Hence, O painter, beware lest the lust of gain should supplant in you the dignity of art, for the acquisition of glory is a much greater thing than the glory of riches. Hence, for these and other reasons which might be given, first strive in drawing to represent your intention to the eye by expressive forms, and the idea originally formed in your imagination. Then go on taking out or putting in until you have satisfied yourself. Then have living men, draped or nude, as you may have purposed in your work, and take care that in dimensions and size, as determined by perspective, nothing is left in the work which is not in harmony with reason and the effects in nature, and this will be the way to win honor in your art. Of the means of acquiring universality. It is an easy matter to men to acquire universality, for all terrestrial animals resemble each other as to their limbs, that is, in their muscles, sinews, and bones, and they do not vary excepting in length or in thickness, as will be shown under anatomy. But then there are aquatic animals which are of great variety. I will not try to convince the painter that there is any rule for them, for they are of infinite variety, and so is the insect tribe. The mind of the painter must resemble a mirror, which always takes the color of the object it reflects, and is completely occupied by the images of as many objects as are in front of it. Therefore you must know, O painter, that you cannot be a good one if you are not the universal master of representing by your art every kind of form produced by nature. And this you will not know how to do if you do not see them and retain them in your mind. Hence, as you go through the fields, turn your attention to various objects, and in turn look now at this thing and now at that, collecting a store of diverse facts selected and chosen from those of less value. But do not do like some painters who, when they are wearied with exercising their fancy, dismiss their work from their thoughts and take exercise in walking for relaxation, but still keep fatigue in their mind, which, though they see various objects around them, does not apprehend them. But even when they meet friends or relations and are saluted by them, although they see and hear them, take no more cognizance of them than if they had met so much empty air. Games to be played by those who draw. When, O draftsman, you desire to find relaxation in games, you should always practice such things as may be of use in your profession, by giving your eye good practice in judging accurately of the breadth and length of objects. Thus, to accustom your mind to such things, let one of you draw a straight line at random on a wall, and each of you, taking a blade of grass or of straw in his hand, try to cut it to the length that the line drawn appears to him to be, standing at a distance of 10 braccia. Then each one may go up to the line to measure the length he has judged it to be. And he who has come nearest with his measure to the length of the pattern is the best man and the winner, and shall receive the prize you have settled beforehand. Again you should take foreshortened measures, that is, take a spear, or any other cane or reed, and fix on a point at a certain distance, and let each one estimate how many times he judges that its length will go into that distance. Again, who will draw best a line 1 braccio long, which shall be tested by a thread. And such games give occasion to good practice for the eye, which is of the first importance in painting. I cannot forbear to mention among these precepts a new device for study which, although it may seem but trivial and almost ludicrous, is nevertheless extremely useful in arousing the mind to various inventions. And this is, when you look at a wall spotted with stains, or with a mixture of stones, if you have to devise some scene, you may discover a resemblance to various landscapes, beautified with mountains, rivers, rocks, trees, plains, wide valleys, and hills in varied arrangement. Or again you may see battles and figures in action, or strange faces and costumes, and an endless variety of objects, which you could reduce to complete and well-drawn forms. And these appear on such walls confusedly, like the sound of bells, in whose jangle you may find any name or word you choose to imagine. This is John Lesko for ListenToGenius.com. Thank you for listening. This audio program is copyrighted by Redwood Audiobooks. Permission is granted to download for personal use only, not for distribution or commercial use.